Over the last two executive briefings, we've talked about something that I call the authority economy. We talked about why buyers no longer make decisions the way they used to, why market share is increasingly won before a salesperson is ever invited to the conversation, and why digital authority is becoming one of the most valuable business assets a company can own. But eventually, every CEO asks the same question. That's interesting, but how do you build it? Hey, welcome back to this little corner of the Tiki bar. I'm Matthew Pearce, and every week we step away from the noise to talk about the bigger shifts changing how businesses grow. And today's conversation is different. It's about implementation, because I want to show you how digital authority is actually built. Here's a mistake that I see over and over again. Companies assume that because they have expertise, the market automatically sees them as the experts. Guess what? It doesn't. There's a huge difference between expertise and visible expertise. One exists inside your company, the other exists inside your customer's mind. That's where the gap is. I've worked with companies doing 10 million, 50 million, even hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue, and almost all of them have extraordinary expertise. Very few have extraordinary authority, because expertise hidden inside your business creates really no competitive advantage. Only visible expertise does. And that's where digital authority really is. Making your expertise impossible to ignore. Over the years, our team has developed a framework for solving exactly that problem. Not a content strategy, not an SEO strategy, not a YouTube strategy, an operating system, a repeatable framework for transforming expertise into authority, authority into trust, trust into growth. So there are 5 parts. Number 1, choose your territory. Most companies try to own everything. Category leaders do the exact opposite. They choose one conversation and become synonymous with it. So ask yourself, when somebody in your industry has a problem, what do you want them to think of first? If your competitors define the conversation, they eventually will define the category. Second, teach instead of simply publishing. Most companies confuse publishing with teaching. They're not really the same thing. Publishing creates activity. Teaching creates authority. One article won't change perceptions. One video won't make you the expert, but dozens of educational assets answering real customer questions and reinforcing the same expertise begins creating something much more powerful. Knowledge depth. Eventually, buyers stop seeing content and they start seeing expertise. Third, create evidence. Authority isn't claimed, it's demonstrated. Every educational asset, every customer story, every case study, every executive interview becomes evidence. Evidence buyers evaluate. Evidence search engines understand. Evidence that AI can reference. AI doesn't invent expertise, it validates expertise. So your job is to make sure your expertise is nearly impossible to miss. And fourth, let discovery become the outcome. Something remarkable happens when authority begins to compound. Customers start finding you. Search engines recognize your expertise. AI recommends your company. Publications reference your thinking. Conference organizers invite you to speak. Partners begin reaching out. Discovery, it's not really the goal. Authority is. Discovery is simply what authority produces. And this is also where paid media becomes dramatically more effective. Advertising introduces buyers to a company that's already trusted. And finally, measure the right things. Most companies measure marketing, views, traffic, clicks. I guess all those metrics matter, but don't forget to measure trust. Measure recommendations. Measure how often AI includes your company. Measure how many buying questions your brand owns. Measure how often prospects already trust you before they ever contact sales. Because what you measure determines what you'll build. When you step back, everything we've discussed throughout this executive briefing series comes together here. The authority economy, knowledge capital, the recommendation economy, they're all connected because businesses no longer compete only for attention. They compete for trust. And trust doesn't happen by accident. It's engineered deliberately, patiently, consistently. Every company has expertise. Very few become the authority, though. And the companies that do don't simply publish more, they publish with greater intention. They organize their knowledge. They answer customer questions before they're even asked. They teach. They simplify. They become the trusted voice in their industry. Products can be copied. Pricing can be matched. Technology eventually catches up. Authority is much harder to replicate. That's why at TurboRank, we don't just help companies improve marketing, we help them build one of the most valuable strategic assets a business can own. Guess what? It's digital authority. Because over the next decade, businesses won't compete only for customers, they'll compete to become the company customers and AI recommends first. Hey, thanks for joining me here in my little tiki bar. I know if you have been following this executive briefing series, you probably noticed we're not really talking about marketing anymore, right? We're talking about how companies become market leaders. So if you're wondering where your company stands today, that's exactly why we created the TurboRank Digital Authority Assessment. It shows you where your authority already exists, where the gaps are, and where your greatest opportunities are hiding. I'm Matthew Pearce. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me, and I'll see you in the next TurboRank Executive Briefing.